And good evening, everyone, and welcome to the King Jordan Radio Show for Thursday, May the 12th, 2016. Tonight on the show, we'll get right into George Zimmerman situation as he's trying to sell the gun that he killed Trayvon Martin, and I'll tell you after why he's probably the worst person in the world right now. There is a person that is trying to say that he is Prince's biological kid. Now, he did say this 10 years ago. I'll ask our guest if that gives it any more credence. A brother kills another brother over a cheeseburger. We'll get into that. Now, ladies and gentlemen, tonight our special guest is a 20-year attorney. Currently, he acts as a defense attorney, and you can see him every day on CNN as he is a CNN legal analyst for the Turner Broadcasting Network. I am talking about the one and only, probably one of our most popular guests on the show here. Ladies and gentlemen, it is a great pleasure to bring back New York's own Joey Jackson. Good evening, Joey. How are you?
King Jordan, I am fabulous and never better than when I'm talking to you. So all is well. I'm surviving in a crazy world. How you doing?
Okay, and I started out the show with Prince. It's troubling to hear that we lost, besides the ongoing investigation, you basically, like me, grew up with Prince, Michael Jackson, and these people at Whitney Houston that we are losing.
I really did, and what an icon, what a blessing to humanity. Music affects so many lives in so many ways. We hear music at various times and ceremonies in our lives, whether it's weddings, birthdays, other celebrations, casually during summer months when we're just grooving to whatever beats we are in our cars, in our homes. It's just, and you just have people who are so valuable to their music and give so much, and when their lives are cut short, and when it's due to whether it's pain medication or some other addiction that we know or don't know about, it just makes it all the sadder. And you just get so tired of hearing about it. So God bless him and God bless his family. And to think that it could have been prevented and emergency intervention was on the way,
yes.
Literally the day after he
hours
died.
away.
I mean, that
yes.
makes it better. Hours away. It's just such a tragically sad thing. So may Prince rest in peace, and what a wonderful tribute you provided by, playing his music tonight.
Yes, well, ever since he passed, I've only been playing the Prince music until I can emotionally get over it myself. Prince, an icon, long live, his music. That's one thing that will never die. I could hear that 99 song, Doves Don't Cry, 7. I could go on and on and on. You can say what you want about him, Michael Jackson. These people, their music will live forever. Whitney Houston, just such talent, gone too soon. But what comes with this, i.e. Anna Nicole, is paternity. Now, we do have somebody who is a prisoner in Colorado, and here's the background story, and I want to get your take, because there's something important that he mentions in this clip. Let's see if he mentions it in this clip. And on the other side, I want to ask you about it.
Sure.
The Prince paternity controversies have begun, with a prisoner in Colorado filing the first claim following the music legend's death. Carlin Q. Williams, who is behind bars at a Supermax prison for firearm possession, filed a paternity claim Monday stating he is Prince's sole surviving legal heir. The claim requests that a DNA test be made to prove Williams is the son of the Purple One. According to the claim, Williams' mother, Marcia Henson, said she met Prince in the Crown Center Hotel lobby in Kansas City, Montana in July of 1976. The two drank wine before having unprotected sex in a room there, court papers say. Henson gave birth to Williams in April of 1977. Prince would have been 18 at the time, fresh out of high school and several years away from superstardom. His debut album, For You, did not come out until 1978. Court papers do not state Williams' claim for his stake in Prince's estimated $300 million estate. Williams is serving a 7-year sentence and will be imprisoned until 2020. Prince's estate has not commented on the claim.
Okay, Joey, they also mentioned that he did say this 10 years ago also when Prince was alive. Now you got credibility issues. Is it just going to come down to the DNA? I mean, they do have a lawyer that took it, so there must be something to it, right?
It'll come down to a lot more than that, and let's just backtrack a minute. And in backtracking, obviously, whenever a person creates a will is a legal contract, and that dictates what the person's individual wishes are as to the distribution of whatever property they have, including tangible property, real estate interest, intellectual property in Prince's case, which would mean the rights to his music. And so whenever you have a will, it does away with any need for dispute because obviously the person who drafts it expresses their wishes expressly in a legal document. Now, to date, a will has not been unearthed, and so therefore there's some concern as to whether he had one. There may still be some document out there that surfaces, and of course he could have created what's called a trust, which you create another legal document which provides for the distribution of monies and real property and, whatever assets you have. So that could still surface. Now, in the event that it doesn't, what happens, just so the listeners know, is that there are what are called laws of intestacy. Intestacy means that you die without a will. And whenever you die without a will, should that be the case with Prince, as indications appear to point to, what happens is that the individual state that you're from, there are these laws that dictate where your money is to go. And they go something like this. If you have a spouse, your spouse gets. In Prince's case, he didn't have a spouse, so now you look and see if he has any children. In the event that he has no children, which is believed to be the case now, we'll get into the claim momentarily, then they go to your grandchildren. If you have no children and grandchildren, then, of course, they look to your parents. If you have then no parents, they look to your siblings. And the siblings, of course, are the ones who, and his real, I won't say real sister because that doesn't do all the, stepbrothers, I don't want to say stepbrothers and sisters, but all the half-brothers and sisters, it doesn't do them justice because, sisters and brothers are sisters and brothers. But I'll say that we know that his sister, full sister, filed the paperwork and naming her and 5 other half-siblings, too. Siblings will all share in his interests when all is said and done. Right now, what they're doing with the estate is they're looking at what it's valued at. They're doing a valuation. They're seeing what it's worth. They're looking at his creditors. What creditors did he have? What tax liability does he have, et cetera, and then it'll be distributed. Now, back to this particular claim. Now, even though the law says that your child gets pretty much everything, even if this claim determined to be true, and you mentioned, King, credibility, it's going to really come down to beyond credibility. It's going to come down to DNA. DNA is going to establish whether this is Prince's child or not, right? So this is not something that we need witness testimony for. It's something that we need scientific testimony. Are you the child or not? Now, even if it's established that these DNA claims are true, I will find it very difficult to believe that a court acting in a legal capacity will thereby give a child that apparently was conceived when Prince was 17, before he was a star, et cetera, who, Prince, who knows, Prince is very private. I don't know whether he had a relationship, didn't have a relationship with this particular son. Don't know anything about it. That may come out in the months to come. But regardless of that, I don't believe a court would just say, here, take $300 million or $500 million. Or remember, we should also say that he's earning money in death. Oftentimes, stars earn a lot more money in their death, and we know that his music is now playing more. People are purchasing it. I have a hard time believing that any
number
court
1 and 2 on iTunes.
Right, exactly. So there's no way that a court is going to just give a child, and say, okay, great, your claim's right, DNA, here you go. I think there's going to be a massive dispute. I think the child, if it proves to be true, will get something, but I don't think even if these claims are true, that the court would just give him everything and cut out all of his siblings at all. Because remember, and the final thing I'll say about this, unless you have any follow-up questions, is that courts are not only courts of law, but courts are courts of equity, meaning a court generally, of course, follows the law. That's what courts do. But the underpinnings of law have meaning, right? Meaning you want to do justice also. And so the question becomes, how much justice does it do to Prince and his family to simply award everything just because biologically this is the child and the law said so? I think they'll be looking to really, on an equitable basis, to do the right thing, which would be to allow his other family members to share in whatever interest, notwithstanding the specific written law. And that's generally, how things go, believe it or not, because at the end of the day, a court of law wants to do what's proper, right, just, and what makes sense. And so I think that litigation would ensue, and at the end of the day, I think the siblings as well as the child, should it prove to be the child, will get something from the estate.
So time is the essence here, and I guess time will tell, i.e. Anna Nicole Smith and all the other celebrities. This George Zimmerman thing really bothers me. I'll tell you why. It's not so much that he's selling the gun, it's just that he's selling this gun. Does he really need the money? He knows that as soon as he does this, it's going to create controversy among the news outlets. He knows people are going to talk about it. He's going to make. He's trying to make a few $1,000s. That's one thing. But this just smells very bad. It's just like he's putting gasoline over the poor mother's son, and it's just, I just can't think of a worse thing to do. And somebody said it to me earlier. If karma don't get him, i.e. OJ, I don't know what will, because this is totally disgusting. Trying to sell this gun, and I heard one website rejected it after they had it for a few hours. They took it down now. But this is just a terrible story that I wanted to get your take on.
Number one, my reaction is likewise. I think it's appalling to do that. And just let me clarify what I mean.
Sure.
We understand, everyone listening, that there was a trial and he was acquitted. So good for him. And I'll be the first to tell you that, I defend people, every day and twice on Sunday. It's my job. And so, yes, he was acquitted, and I get that. I understand that. I respect the judicial process and respect the decision of the jury, of course. Because, however, something is illegal doesn't make it the right thing to do from a moral perspective, from a judgment perspective, and from a humane perspective. At the end of the day, there's a child that's dead. Now, the jury concluded it was in self-defense. I get it. But, to throw salt on the wounds of a family that's grieving is, to me, just a very inhumane thing, a very insensitive thing, and a thing that lacks judgment. And I also want to be clear that, and the fact is that he can do it. Okay, it's his legal right to do it. It's his property, and he can do what he wants with his property. And many people say, well, why is that? Well, what do you mean? This gun was used to kill someone. And I just want to clarify something to make everybody understand. There are laws throughout the country, and they're called Son of Sam laws. They're named after Son of Sam, who went on a killing spree back in the 70s in New York City. Son of Sam, David Berkowitz. And he was going to profit, or it was widely believed that he was going to profit from his killings by selling the story. And so the New York State legislature passed a law which said that criminals can't profit from their wrongdoing. And thereafter, New York State was the first. Many states throughout the country did likewise. The problem is that those laws that don't allow a person to profit from their crimes relate to convicted criminals. And to the extent that Zimmerman has not been convicted, they wouldn't apply to him, and therefore he would be allowed to do it. The issue then becomes is, when I say is it right and is it humane, is whether the public backlash and the outcry will be so steep that it would allow a website to otherwise reject it. And, of course, he had it on the website, the gun website earlier. It was removed from that website. Who knows where it's showing up now. But, hopefully at some point in time, humanity needs to prevail. And I think whether you support George Zimmerman, whether you don't support him, whether you like the verdict, whether you don't like the verdict, I think that we could collectively agree as a society that, people should be allowed to grieve and people should be allowed to be left in peace. And, we should try to do the right thing where we can. There's no perfect individual. I'm not claiming that to be the case. But we should try to be a humane society, and I think in a humane society, this is just a very poor decision, in my opinion. I'm sure there are those that disagree with me, but at the end of the day, again, it's his right to do it. It doesn't make it right to do it, and that's my position on the issue.
Yeah, and at the end of the day, if he doesn't have any compassion for the one he killed, just find it so hard that he doesn't have a little compassion for the poor mother. That child definitely gone too soon. I mean, no matter what issues he had with Trayvon, the mother and the father are innocent bystanders, and to subject them to this is just beyond bad taste.
Truer words were never spoken. I second your motion. Could not have said it any better myself.
Okay, we have a very unique story over at Cheeseburger. A brother killed another brother. Here is the story, and I get your take on the other side.
My son! I shot at my son! A mother loses one of her two sons during a Mother's Day weekend over what allegedly was a dispute over a cheeseburger.
My brother shot my brother on accident!
Listen to part of the terrifying 911 call released by police that they say took place inside this home in St. Cloud, Florida.
Can you tell me exactly what happened?
We were in a fight and I grabbed the gun and I really shot him! Oh my God!
A woman could be heard telling the dispatcher,
I'm gonna kill my son!
28-year-old Nicholas Middendorf was pronounced dead on scene. Police say this man, 25-year-old Benjamin Middendorf, shot his brother Nick in the chest with a gun after getting into an argument. He's charged with homicide and being held on no bond. It's unclear what sparked the fight over the burger, but according to the police report, the brothers were arguing over responsibilities. The investigation is ongoing. For InsideEdition.com, I'm Lee Shep.
I tell you, Joey, you must hear a lot of cases like this, but have you ever heard of a case where the underlying thing was the cheeseburger that led to a death?
I mean, there's so many things that happen throughout the country in various states, and they just kind of make you wince, and they turn your stomach, and they just kind of make you think, what has happened to the world? Where's the peace?
Right.
Where's the love? Where's the humanity? Where's the empathy? I don't get it. I'm presuming, without having any knowledge of this, that they certainly would have had other issues beyond this. I don't know that any brothers who love each other and support each other are going to resort to any type of physical violence, much less a gun, unless there's some other deep-seated issues between them or in the family, or whether it's mental, emotional. So I'm presuming that we're going to discover that there's some long history of feuding here. But that notwithstanding, I just kind of don't get it. It's like when you learn about people who get shot and killed over a parking spot, or road rage incidents that lead to just disasters and the changing of people's lives. And that's why it's just so important, to the extent that we can. And, some people get hot and heavy over things, and I get it. It's a tough life, and, some people have very difficult lives, and I get and respect that also. But sometimes it's good just to take a time out, take a minute, regroup, rethink, and, count to 5 before acting, because I just can't make sense out of the senseless. It just makes no sense to me how someone would be shot and killed and die, whether it's your brother or not. If even if it's a stranger, I mean, you're fighting over a hamburger. It just kind of doesn't make sense. And I'm just very sad, and I pray for the family, and I just am beside myself with how something like this can happen.
Yeah, I mean, from a defense standpoint, can you say maybe this is a case of temporary insanity?
Well,
and if so, how would that work?
I think what happens is that I don't know that you're going to get away with that, temporary insanity or any type of insanity. But what I will say is that oftentimes when people do engage in violence, and they're engaging in violence in the heat of a passionate moment, the law does recognize it does not excuse, mitigates, or lessens the actual charge. So, for example, where if it could be established that the shooting happened when there was provocation, there was a dispute, there was a fight, there was sort of a loss of control, there was an act upon impulse, that would lessen, in what we call in law, lessen meaning mitigate the charge from a murder to, say, a manslaughter, because the law recognizes that when we act in the heat of passion, we don't mean to kill, but the death is a natural consequence of what we do. Whether that will apply here or not, of course, depends upon all of the facts, the scenarios, the situation, what occurred, how it occurred, what was the past history, how long were they arguing, were they arguing about something else. So all that needs to be vetted. So I don't see a scenario where any type of insanity would work, but there could, and I say could, very broadly, because we're going to learn all the facts, could be a scenario where a manslaughter, lesser type, sudden impulse, acting on passion scenario would work, depending upon what the facts show as to why this occurred. But even if that's the case, you're looking at, decades in jail anyway. So it's just a tragedy all around.
No question. Believe it or not, there's another O.J. Simpson the documentary set to come out in June, and here's a few words from the director, and I want to get your takes. I know you watched the FX one on the other side.
Sure.
Jeff Snyder here at the Wrap Sundance Video Studio, and I'm sitting down with Ezra Edelman, the director of O.J. Made in America, 7.5-hour documentary about O.J. Simpson. Thanks for coming in, Ezra.
Thank you for having me, Jeff.
Now, how long did this take you to make, and why did you want to spend, I'm imagining years of your life, telling the story about O.J. Simpson?
You wouldn't want to spend years of your life thinking about O.J. Simpson. It's been a couple intense years, more or less, a little less. But it really was the brainchild of Connor Schell, the president of ESPN Films, who wanted to tell a story about O.J., and he came to me. And to be honest, I initially was reluctant because I thought, haven't we all lived through this? I lived through it. Mm-hmm. Like, is there really anything more to say? And Connor, really was great in saying, well, think about it. Think about it, what the story means to you. And when I thought about it, I said, no, man, this story's about everything that, one could want to be. It's a story about everything. And it really, when I realized that I could do a deep dive into L.A., race, the police, mm-hmm. It's about America. And that was what drew me to the story more than I need to tell a 7.5-hour story about O.J. Simpson.
Right. It's not as concerned with who did it so much as
correct
everything around it.
Correct.
Now, you got a lot of key players from the trial, to appear in this documentary. How did you get them to open up to you?
$64,000 question. I don't know. All I could say is that we presented ourselves in a manner to say, look, this is what we're trying to do. We really want to talk about this with the proper historical perspective. We do not want to do anything sensationalist. It has been 20 years. I am doing this big thing with you or without you. So please share your thoughts and your recollections. And thankfully, a lot of people did.
As far as the length goes, there was never any pressure on you to cut or trim down to a more manageable length or anything like that?
Well, actually, it's quite the opposite. So It was conceived of as a 5-hour thing, 5 hours of television, mm-hmm. and which I was pretty adamant. Even the reason I wanted to actually do it, I was like, 5-hour film. I don't want to make a miniseries. I want to make a 5-hour. got into it, and honestly, we started working on it through the editing process, and it went from, I actually need this to make it 5 hours, 300 minutes. And then it became, well, can I make it 6 hours? And again, to ESPN's credit, they said, sure, great, do what you think. We screened a rough cut that was over 7.5, and they said, we think it's great, and there are things that we'd want you to add, so why don't you just make it 5 parts and make it 7.5 hours long?
So that's how it's going to be presented in 2 hour, 5
nights in a row.
Okay.
2-hour chunks, so 10 hours of television.
That's
and
cool.
So in many ways, it's like they deserve a lot of credit by not being so rigid in their approach. They let us do the work. They let us present them with what we did, and they said, we like this. This is deserving of this much time.
Is the film screening again here at Sundance?
It is not.
Okay, when does it debut on ESPN?
The plan is for it to be on in June. There are no official dates yet.
Okay, I will clear my schedule. Ezra, thanks so much for coming by. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Joe.
Good luck with everything.
Okay, Joey, you got into the first one, as did I. Do you see any reason why this one won't be a success?
You know, I think it'll be a huge success. There was been a fascination with this O.J. case from the outset, from the time it occurred, just with a celebrity potentially engaging in an act of violence, beyond violence, just murder, the most atrocious death, a person who had everything, money, celebrity, fame, looks, charm, the whole bit, throwing it away based on impulse. But did he? And he has a domestic violence history with her, but does that mean that he really did it? And, it just, the whole O.J. issue was fascinating, and then it became even more fascinating when we learned about the lawyers who would be entering into it, and the most high-powered lawyers of the generation. And, this is a case that took Johnny Cochran, a talented, spectacular attorney, and made him just a megastar, an icon, and a person who lives forever through his firm, which present day is, throughout the country. And so I just think that there's so many elements, and it became a really reality TV of that time. Reality TV now is spectacular. We watch it, right? All types of reality shows on, including the Housewives of this, the Housewives of the other.
Right.
But if you think about it, that was a live trial on TV for a year. And so people got into the characters, the personalities, the characters of the attorneys, the personalities of the attorneys, the actual participants, who was Nicole and who was Ron Goldman, and how did it happen, and what was the nature of their relationship, and every aspect of his life analyzed. And so I think it'll be a super success. I certainly intend to watch it. I watched the other one. I enjoyed it very much. But I think there's a fascination with O.J. that just is not going to, go away anytime soon. So I look forward to June, whenever that is, so that I can turn the TV on. And if I don't watch it then, I'm certainly going to DVR it and watch it when I have the opportunity.
No question. We do have a couple of calls for you. Would you take them?
It would be my high honor and privilege to take these calls.
Okay. Let's go out to the West Coast, Huntington Beach, California. Sarah joins us. Hi, Sarah. You're on the phone live with Joey Jackson on King Jordan Radio. Good evening.
Hi, Jordan. Hi, Joey. Oh, so good to talk to you guys.
Sarah.
Hi. I agree with everything you've said so far, and I can't even think of any questions, Joey, that you haven't covered regarding the inheritance of Prince and I just have to say about the supposedly Cheeseburger murder or whatever murder, because I agree too that there had to be a lot of anger in that house, a lot of issues. And I just think, and you must see this all the time being a defense attorney, and I think there's so much anger in society, and I think there's such a huge lack of empathy for your fellow human being. And I think that's such a scary, horrific recipe or not really a recipe, it's just lacking ingredients. I mean, anger and no empathy is very, very bad. And I just feel really bad about that. I just wanted to say, I'd read when I had Googled the story because I just wasn't too sure about the details, and I just Googled brother kills brother over cheeseburger, another story came up that brother killed brother over last piece of chicken, and this was in Texas a few years ago. And I just thought, holy cow, what is happening to families in this country? But that was more of a statement than a question. So this is totally off the wall, and then I'll hang up so that everyone else can talk to you, Joey, because I know everybody wants to talk to you. The Baltimore police officers' trials, the 5 or 6 trials that are coming, one was postponed.
Right.
This current one is a bench trial.
Right.
Now, have you ever heard that a judge is kind of like a I don't want to say this because I'm not trying to make a joke, but like a hung judge, like he just okay, no humor. Honestly, I didn't know how to put it, but right, okay, so that he just like the lack of evidence, but then if it was lack of evidence, then he would just dismiss the case. So, is there any time that you know of, Joey, where a judge says, "I don't know"?
That's a good one.
Well, Sarah, first of all, I appreciate your comments, or your statement, rather, before you asked this question. And
thank you, Joey.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm glad you called in, and I'm glad you shared your thoughts and views with us. As far as a judge hanging or a judge not making a decision, that does not happen. A judge has an obligation legally to render a verdict, and oftentimes in these cases, defendants who are police prefer to have a judge do it. It becomes less emotional. Judges have heard and seen pretty much most everything, and so they're not swayed by the emotion of a death. They're swayed by the facts and the circumstances and the law, and they'll focus it on the law. And beyond that, I think that you see many judges who are sympathetic to law enforcement in as much as they recognize and understand the nature of the job, the craziness that comes with the job, the sort of just day-to-day things that police officers deal with, whereas members of the community, and that's in large part because judges hear police testimony daily. I mean, it's part of what they do. It's part of what they see. They see good officers. They see not as good officers. They see the worst of officers. They see the best of officers. And so a judge can cut through and they can make an assessment. But at the same time, it's also a risk whenever you're having a judge absolutely will make a decision. The question is, it's a risk of whether or not you want to leave the case in a judge's hand. For political reasons, you may not want to. There could be pressures on the judge. And, again, just talking real and talking realistically, we like to think that judges are immune from everything and that they just focus on law and nothing else. But, there are pressures that judges have. And it's a tough call, and it depends upon the judge. There are judges of all types of leaning and bents. I mean, there are judges who are supportive of police. There are judges who are not as supportive of police. There are judges who, lean conservative. There are judges who lean liberally. And so a lot depends upon who the judge is as to making that decision. I'll tell you that I had a trial of my own a couple of weeks ago involving a corrections officer and involving an incident that occurred. And you can look it up. It's in the New York Times. And I had to make a decision just a couple of weeks ago in terms of whether I wanted a jury or I wanted a judge. And I opted to go jury just because of the nature of the case and the politics surrounding the case and everything else. And, and the jury did the right thing, which was to acquit my client. But it's a tough decision to make. But a judge absolutely, Sarah, in the final analysis and answer to your question, will make it, whether it's one that's going to be good for the defendant or one that's going to find the defendant guilty.
Well, thank you. I kind of had a feeling that's what the case would be, that they have to. And you're right, they're human, so they can lean one way or the other or hopefully be in the middle. And I guess maybe it's a smaller gamble than 12 people versus one judge who really, really hopefully understands the law and will be fair in that respect. and then he doesn't have to deal with all those jury instructions.
That's right, because the judge knows them. The problem is when you have 12 people, though, from a defense perspective, you can hang a jury. All you need is one. And remember, on the issue of hung jury, remember that Porter hung in that particular case, right? He was tried, and a jury couldn't make a decision. So it's a tough call to go with a judge. I personally like to take my chances with juries. It always depends on the case, but I mean, in my career, I've had my bench trials have been very infrequent in my life, very infrequent. Just because I trust judges. I absolutely do. But when it comes to issues affecting just something as compelling, I just want a jury to really evaluate it. I just want to be able to tell my story to them. And oftentimes you get into massive arguments with judges over issues of law, issues of fact. The judge and I, in my last case, wonderful judge, smart judge, very good judge, but we were at odds every day. And if it was a bench trial, I couldn't do it because I'm thinking, will he hold it against me? Will he not? But we're literally, I'm screaming at the top of my lungs in his chambers, fighting for my client for him to admit evidence, and he's telling me he's not going to admit it. And I'm saying, well, look at the law, judge. And, in a bench trial, you can't do that because it could adversely affect you, even though you hope it won't. The judges keep it real and they keep it on the law. But it's a tough decision. And at the end of the day, though, we're going to see this judge either convict Nero or acquit Nero. But that judge is going to do something, and it's not going to be to hang.
Thanks so much, Sarah. Let's go to area code 614. Please state your name and where you're calling from. You're live with Joey Jackson. 614, it's your turn.
Hi, this is Brenda. I'm calling from Columbus, Ohio. Hi, Jordan. Hi, Joey.
How are you, Brenda?
Hi.
I'm good. Joey, I follow your fan page on Facebook. I love sharing all the ladies on there. I just have a quick question about
He's fabulous. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
I just have a quick question regarding the affluenza young man I saw where he was sentenced to 2 years. I find that appalling. I guess I'm just kind of wondering what your thoughts are on that.
Well, here's the point. The point is that it goes deep. And when I say it goes deep, you have to look at all the surrounding circumstances. And if you look at that, I think from the outset it's a travesty. The kid, multiple people are dead as a result of his conduct. There are multiple people who are injured as a result of his conduct. And absolutely, the 2-year sentence and the probation that he got initially, all of it was out of whack, was out of kilter. It should have never, ever, ever, ever happened to begin with. Certainly there was a punishment that would have been more just, more appropriate. And I think to blame his lack of judgment on the fact that he was too rich, in and of itself is problematic to me. But getting by that, what happens is that the current judge gave him a sentence which was really the max that he could give him under the law. And so what happens in that context in the affluenza case is that when a person goes from a juvenile court and now he's in adult court, they could sentence you, but it's really kind of a dual sentence because it happened when he was a juvenile, but now he's reached adulthood, he's still on probation, and the judge can tack on an additional sentence up to a maximum permissible when you are an adult. So technically, he was given the max sentence that he could have gotten when he went to adult court, but my issue is that the underlying sentence was flawed. So yes, we can argue and say, and I agree that 2 years is appalling and he should have done a lot more, but under the legal authority that the judge had, that's the best that he can do under those circumstances. But I think that the entirety of that case was out of kilter, out of whack, and I think the affluenza defense is not one that we're going to see for probably a long time to come.
Gosh, I hope so. Well, thank you both for taking my call. I enjoy you both, and have a good evening.
A pleasure. You too. Thank you for taking the time. Thank you.
Okay, let's do one last call. Let's go out to Mary Wainwright out of Virginia. Good evening, Mary. You're on the phone with Joey Jackson on a Thursday night on King Jordan Radio.
Hi, good evening, Jordan, and hello, Joey. How are you guys?
Is this
Hi.
the esteemed Mary Wainwright?
Well, I don't know about esteem, but it's the Barry Wainwright,
I'm going to add to that esteemed and fabulous. How about that? I'm not going to limit it to esteemed.
I will take fabulous.
Good.
Okay. Well, I have a question which has to do with the brothers case. And I think that Jordan asked some of the question, part of the question that I was asking. But you know how they say that you can form premeditation in the blink of an eye.
Absolutely.
How can you determine that what the brother did at the moment he did it, when he picked up the gun to shoot his brother, was premeditated as opposed to like the heat of passion, like you said? How does the jury determine that?
It's a wonderful question, Mary. It really is. And I think the answer is as follows. Any case turns upon the facts of that particular case. Now, let's answer it two ways. First, I'll answer it from a factual perspective, and then I'll answer it from a legal perspective.
Okay.
In terms of the facts of the case, what happens is that in the event that there is a trial, and it's, for example, a jury trial, the argument, if the defense attorney is going to be arguing heat of passion, he's going to be saying, look at the surrounding circumstances. There was an argument that ensued.
Right.
There was provocation by the fact that the person who got shot got into his face. There was
right.
yelling, there was screaming, there was a loss of control, there was a fight that went on. And so factually, I think the attorney who is going to make what we call a mitigation argument to lessen it from murder to something else is going to fuel facts and to give facts that would suggest that he was provoked, that there was a loss of control, that there was no intent, that certainly, maybe he acted in a way that he just lost control based upon the fact that there was this massive argument that centered over a hamburger but also got into so many other surrounding issues and so many circumstances, and there was bad blood, and oh my goodness. And so factually, I think, and we don't know all the facts, but they'll come out eventually, Mary, is that they're going to make the argument to suggest that it wasn't, okay, you know what, you now have crossed the line, and as a result of that, I'm going to point my gun at you, form the intent, shoot and kill. That would be an intentional premeditation in just one moment. Boom.
Wow.
But if the argument is made that it was based on a loss of control, it was based upon impulse, he just lost his mind, he didn't mean to do it. Not losing his mind in a legal sense in terms of what I talked about with King Jordan earlier, but just in the, oh my God, are you kidding me? Boom. That's not the intent formation. That's the passion, sudden impulse formation. So that's the one thing. And then I talked about from a legal perspective, Mayor, I think what you're going to see is the judge is going to instruct the jury as to the difference. And that difference, as you very well point out, the judge is going to say, hey, look, this is murder. And premeditation could be formed in an instant. And understand that if you find that premeditation was formed and that there was the intention to kill at the time that the trigger was pulled, then you'll find him guilty. On the other hand, if the jury, you should find that he acted upon provocation and that there was sudden impulse and that there were a loss of control, then you'll find it was manslaughter. And so I think that the answer to your question is the question that the jurors may very well be asking as they're in that jury room, because they're going to look at the facts, they're going to look at the law, and they're going to try to determine which one it was. And the one that they believe it to be will be the one that they ultimately come back. And it could very well end up, as we saw, not to get far afield on this, but just to bring in New York, we had a shooting involving police officer Liang. Now, police officer Liang was a person who actually shot and killed an unarmed person in a stairwell in Brooklyn.
Right.
And so in that particular case, the argument was made that the defense attorneys were arguing, listen, this is actually not a reckless type of murder. This is the negligent homicide. And the judge eventually agreed. Even though the jury convicted Liang of something that was higher, the judge said from a legal perspective, it does not meet the criteria, notwithstanding those facts, and I'm going to find legally that he was only negligent when he shot and he wasn't reckless. So, it very well could get to the point, Mary, where a judge in this particular case intervenes and as a matter of law makes a decision as to whether it was intentional or whether it was done with the heat of passion. But it's not an easy distinction to make, and your question points to just how complicated sometimes the law can be and the gray area of the law as well.
Right. Boy, I tell you, you got to really, besides the jury and how they judge, you got to present your case in the best light that you possibly can. It's amazing. Always. Because it can go either way. I'm sure you know that. So.
100%.
But anyway,
boy, do I.
I want to leave. I want to leave you with a poem that I wrote really quickly.
Wonderful.
I'm just appalled. I write poems, and it's basically about apathy and just. I'm like Sarah. I'm just appalled what's happening to the world today, and where is humanity and apathy everywhere. And so I wrote this real quick poem. I want you guys to listen, okay?
Can't wait.
Sure.
Okay. Is this the world we live in? Humanity dying, apathy rising, evil abounds. Where is good to be found? How do we get off course? Life too stressing, morals dying, leaves us guessing. What can people do? No change overnight, work in progress. Don't stress, ask for less, but give more. A God-centered life, get straight, recreate, rejuvenate, be infinitely thankful. Claim your blessings, live simply, live justly and compassionately, not that hard. Hope one day we will all care, learn to share, will to dare to make a difference. That's it.
That was beautiful. That was absolutely beautiful.
Super.
Thank you.
Super.
Very talented.
Super.
Oh, thank you very much. I just wanted to share it. When I get really, really upset, because especially with what happens to children, it just absolutely just tears up my heart. The way I soothe myself is to write poems, about children and to speak for them in poems, what they can't say, and, that kind of thing. So it's a pleasure to talk to you again, Joy. And Jordan, thank you for having Joy come as often as he can and give us this platform that we can call and ask you questions. And it's just so much more intimate and more pleasant all the way around.
Well, thank you, Mary. I'm grateful and appreciative not only to speak to you today, but all your activity on Facebook and your, questions and your spirit and your positivity and just your interest, in justice. So I'm grateful to have spoken with you tonight, okay? You be well and take care of yourself.
And thanks for the call, Mary. And the last call also mentioned Sharon, who recently reopened the Joey Jackson fans page, and it's a great tribute to you, and they do a great job.
Unbelievable. Whenever you have people who just have such a positive energy and spirit, and remember Sharon wasn't feeling so well for the longest of times, and, she's back in action, which, you never doubt because the smart money is on her. It just is a wonderful thing to have positive people who come together and have just people interested in justice and people who just are as caring and humane, thoughtful, reflective, and just good and decent as people like Sharon are and people like Maddie are and people like Mary Wainwright are. And it takes a village, and I'm just glad that I have a village of great people who are working with me, and it's just a testament to them and their spirit. And they're just they're undying because we've been through so much together. I feel there was a time where HLN was really into its trials, and there was sort of a shift in the trial theory, and they just have never given up. They've always been there, and it's just whether we're in trial season or not in trial season, whether we're in election season, they're just really undying. And so I'm grateful to have just such wonderful people to be able to work with and to know and to be supported by. So kudos to them, and kudos to you for all you do every day, even
Are you
when
worried
you're not
about
on
the
air in
Yankees,
your blog.
Joey?
So thank you.
Are you worried about the Yankees? They're under 500, as you know. It's hard to write them off so early.
Listen, I never worry about my Bronx Bombers, okay? I never worry about them. I just I get concerned about them, but worry is a very strong term, and we're early in the season.
Especially in baseball when you got 100,000 games.
Yeah, exactly. You got 162 games in the season. We just got our bullpen together, so I think that things will turn around in time. It's a very long season, and I cannot give up the hope just yet. But at the same time, as much as I bust on the Mets and as hard as I am on Mets fans, I have to give them kudos because they're having a heck of a year. It's early still for them, but the Mets
especially when pitchers like Bartolo Colon, who's 45 years old, is hitting a home run. That's when you know things are going well.
Hold on, I thought he was in his 60s. What you say? Well, how old? Oh man, no, he's
Bartolo Colon.
Yeah, I thought he was 60 something, but no, he's incredible. He's he's knocking it out of the park. But kudos to the Mets fans.